Hi everyone, welcome to Pop Pop Fizzle. I'm Heidi.
I'm Jeff, and we just got back from seeing Black Panther. We literally got in, it was 1:30 or something when we got back home. We set up the camera so that we could talk to you about Black Panther. Now, we just finished recording a non-spoiler review. That will be clearly marked. If you have not seen Black Panther yet, please do not watch this video.
Don't watch this.
Okay,
Don't
this
do
is
it.
your
Spoiler
warning.
alert.
Yeah, this is your warning because it's an experience and we don't want to ruin it for you.
Yeah.
So you can feel free to check out our non-spoiler review. There'll be a link for that below so that you don't miss that. But yeah, definitely don't watch this review unless you've already seen Black Panther, because we don't want to take that experience away from you. We're going to delve into lots of details, so that will be your only spoiler warning.
That's it.
Okay?
That's it.
All right.
Okay.
So, can you believe Luke Skywalker showed up in this
I
thing?
know,
That
it's
was crazy. No, okay. Let's be serious. So, let's talk about, now in our non-spoiler review, we talked about the production design. We didn't talk about specifics but necessarily, but we talked about some of those designs. One of the things I wanted to mention that I didn't mention in the spoiler-free review was that the ship that we see him in at the beginning, and we see it several times throughout the movie. I love the design of it because it looks like a tribal mask from above.
It does.
It looks like a tribal mask, and even the way that it, like the outside rim of it sort of moves. It looks like a decoration sort of on the outside.
It does.
All of those elements
Or
were
the retractable claws.
All of those elements were so solidly done. Not a caricature of African culture, but blended in with sort of that high tech aesthetic that you would expect Wakanda to have. But with that traditional side of it, and then even, as I said in the non-spoiler thing, even some graffiti and some other things that sort of reference that there's a younger culture that, you know, is doing its own thing, even within that greater context, which on one hand is very traditional and very established. There's also, you know, that sort of side of things where you know that there are kids that are just artists and they want to paint and they're allowed to embrace that and to pursue that. And nothing about it looked foreign or like they were trying to jam in too many things into the pot. It was all blended together so well that it really just kind of yanked us in from the start.
Yeah, it flowed and it totally brought us in. So set design, I mean, from the throne room to the mountain ranges to how Wakanda cloaks itself, everything, like Wakanda itself, the nature elements versus the structural elements, which are not like any city we've seen before. It doesn't look like, you know, New York and Africa or anything weird like that. It looks like it is a place unto itself, and everyone who's involved in that sort of design really needs to be commended because they did everything was so original but so well done.
You know, even you mentioned the throne room, seeing T'Challa's throne room and what it looked like, and then the sort of comparison to M'Baku's throne room or his his version of that. The aesthetic was totally different,
but it fit,
and yet it fit, and it felt like they belonged to the same people, just a different faction, and all of that was just so well done and so well thought out. And I think if any of those things hadn't been as well thought out as they were, you might have been pulled out of the story. You might have felt like it was a joke or that they weren't taking it seriously. And there's never that feeling in this movie.
Never, no.
From direction to acting to the production quality, it's all so solidly built, and such respect and care was taken to do it right.
Yes.
You know, to not have it fall into stereotype, to not have it fall into anything that could be laughable or silly or any of that stuff. And that's hard sometimes in the framework of a comic book movie.
Yeah, there's
because you have that range of, you know, real world with the sort of cosmic and otherworldly, and usually comic books are trying to successfully blend those things together.
And this movie totally did that.
I'm not sure Marvel's done that better than they do it here.
No.
I feel like Ryan Coogler and his team just brought their A game to this whole deal and made something that I think will stand the test of time.
Absolutely.
I'm super excited for, you know, you hear all the time that people want to see sort of themselves represented or something that they understand, and sort of my take on that is always that there are so many good characters out there, so many great African American characters out there. We've got a little of that on television. We've got Luke Cage, which I think is a standout Marvel character that's already made his way to the small screen. we knew that when we saw Captain America Civil War that T'Challa was a character that stood out. I mean, even with having Spider-Man making his debut into the MCU in that film, he still stood out.
Yes.
And so Chadwick Boseman's performance there, I was expecting greatness, and I got greatness in this movie. But so much of that is just because everybody is bringing a solid performance and taking this thing seriously. So it doesn't feel like they're fighting the reality versus silly comic book stuff. It feels very just solid and genuine and...
Yeah, and just tagging on to that, I mean, the characters themselves are not one-dimensional at all.
Right.
There's, I mean, even the main antagonist, T'Challa's cousin, who...
Killmonger, yeah.
Yes, Killmonger, who happened to have been brought up in the States. He was so layered, so different from him, but not different. And it was nice to see real characterizations of people, where it's not a one note. I mean, the character that Andy Serkis played was maybe, pretty villainous in himself. And
I think Andy Serkis likes to chew the scenery and
very mustache twirly, but he served his purpose in this movie as well, so it was fine for him to do that. But everything else, I mean, it was layers, it was real, there was family heart happening there between T'Challa, his sister, and his mom. There was like some great scenes with his dad as well, which were just really contributory to his character and how he wanted to react to what was happening in the world around him. So I thought that was really fantastically done.
Yeah, and even some of those smaller performances, I felt like were really solid. Sterling K. Brown played Killmonger's dad in those flashback scenes. Well, one's not a flashback, we see kind of early on, but then we get some flashback with him later. And his performance, if it was not solid,
right,
then our understanding of Killmonger would be different. I feel like,
absolutely,
and no matter how strong the performance might be, I feel like they needed all those little pieces in place to sort of weave together something that we could buy into and kind of lose ourselves in, and they did that so well. I thought his performance was great. Angela Bassett didn't have a ton to do as T'Challa's mother, but you needed a solid actress to sell you that and sort of
convey the gravity of all the situations, but also be a proud mom.
Right. Yeah, and so not just to sell you that proud mom thing, but also to sell you a woman who loves her country and who appreciates tradition and understands why things are a certain way and all of that. I mean, all of that was handled so well. Lupita Nyong'o's character, I felt like, was really solid. I liked that she was kind of an outsider because she'd been away, and so we got to see things a little bit from her perspective. She had a broader sense of the world, and that influenced how she responded to situations and to people, and it made her pivotal in sort of how the ending of the movie begins to turn.
Right.
So all of that was great. Shuri, T'Challa's sister, I mentioned to you earlier, was Black Panther for a while in the comics. And led Wakanda for a while. And I feel like you could see that. Like, maybe she's a little bit young here, but you can see that she has what it takes to become that character.
Absolutely.
As things progress. I don't know if they'll ever do that, but you can see that she could do that.
Absolutely.
So all of those characters, whether they had a lot to do or they had a little to do, they were all so solidly acted and so solidly written. And here's the thing: you can have a great actor in a role. You can have Chadwick Boseman in this role and have him give his all, and it still not sell you on the gravity of what's happening or make you feel for him as a character. What does that is the combination of his powerful performance and the writing.
Yes.
And I thought it was interesting. I saw in the credits, I think I had heard it before we went in too, but seeing that Ryan Coogler, the director, had a hand in writing that script. So he knew early on what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it. And you could see his fingerprints all over this. So I thought that was great. Solid performances all the way around. What else?
Gosh. Okay, so we were talking about...
I drink, that's why I
that's how that goes. We were talking about the technology of Wakanda and how it was integral to everything that was there. And so one of the things I think you were probably talking about in our non-spoiler review was towards the end we had traditional garb. So costume design, fantastic. Every bit of it was exactly right, spot on. Looked fantastic, and it belonged and all that. But towards the end, the way that their shields work, they were their shawls too, and I was like, I didn't even see that coming. I'm like, where did that? And that was awesome.
Yeah, because you can see that technology and traditional garb had blended together and had, you know, like traditionally, because their technology was so far advanced, they had it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So probably those traditions and some of the garb that has a meaning, you know, came to be as that technology was coming to be as well. You know, so it didn't feel like, well, you know, this is an African thing, and so we're going to just add this. It felt like you could buy that sort of, that country of Wakanda, that nation, had a rich history, a guarded history, but that everyone there, and I think that was what was important about showing us the traditional aspects of their culture, that by selling you on that, like the sort of the tribal aspects of it, they have a rich history that they all understand. So it's not like, you know, it's not like if you take your kid somewhere that means something to you as when you were a kid, and they just don't get it because there's no frame of reference for them. By seeing the tradition, by seeing the chants and the movements that go with it and all that, no matter how they feel about the ritual that's taking place, they still go into it because they're a nation that trusts what they've built and that it's going to work, and they get it. And so all of that to me just was so, it could have gone so badly had they done it any other way, or had they not shown a great deal of respect and care with how they handled it. It could have fallen into cliche and stereotype. But because they were so careful with it, man, it just made it feel like we were seeing this corner of the Marvel Universe that we've never seen before.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like it's almost real. Like it, you know, Wakanda could be an actual place.
Right. Well, and when you see, you mentioned on the way home, we were talking about sort of different facets of the Marvel Universe, and you brought up Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
One of the things that we love about Guardians of the Galaxy is that it shows us another side of the Marvel Universe. Doctor Strange also shows us a very different side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this does it in a completely different way.
But it's still part of the Marvel Cinematic
But it's done
Universe.
astoundingly well. Yeah.
Yes.
And you feel that it's connected, but you also feel that it's its own thing, which is what it is. Wakanda's been hidden. It's been separated for its own protection and its own safety, and so you feel that in the way that it's presented to us. And I think that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I feel, and so going back to how the characters were all very multi-layered and not one note, it was really interesting to hear the discussions about why Wakanda should be more publicized, why Wakanda should
be out in the world.
Out in the world and not as an isolationist nation, that they should be sharing their technology. And the reasoning, I mean, I understand where the characters were coming from that wanted to do that, but their means and their ways of doing that were probably not in anyone's best interest. And I feel like towards the end of the movie, when T'Challa did make that decision, or at least will be making that decision, it was like he understood what it was to be just a good man and a good king at the same time, which was his question right at the beginning. So I feel like he understood through all the trials that he had to go through what that really meant and what that meant for Wakanda.
Right, and that's a great point, because Lupita Nyong'o's character, Nakia, she wants them to be involved in the world, but what Killmonger wants for their involvement in the world is a completely different situation.
Absolutely.
One motivated by compassion and grace, one motivated by vengeance and anger and frustration and the feeling of being denied his birthright or something that he felt like was owed to him. And so you get both of them really wanting a similar sort of thing, but in vastly different ways. And you have a king who is presented as wise enough to understand the difference between the two. And that yes, he, certainly Killmonger's vision for how things should be, totally against everything he stands for. But then Nakia's vision of things is also something that makes him uncomfortable, because they have kept secluded for so long. They have kept to themselves for so long for their own safety, and what will this mean if we make this call?
Yeah.
But eventually he comes to see that that's the right path. And I said to you when we were talking about the comic book version of T'Challa, that what stands out is that he's a tactician, but he's also he's a very wise man. You buy him in whatever situation you find him in as a kingly man, that he is someone who doesn't give in to baser instincts because they're on tap and he's feeling this raw emotion, and you know, he's not that person.
Yeah.
He's thinking about his people, he's thinking about what's right for them as a nation, he's thinking about what's best for mankind.
Exactly.
He's thinking about, and so in the comics you see him up alongside people like a Reed Richards or Tony Stark, and he stands out from them because they're all handled so well. They're all vastly different characters, but all of them respect T'Challa because of who he is as a man, not just as a king, not as a king of a nation because they're not his subjects, but because of who he is, because of his intellect, because of his compassion, because of, you know, that he, once he knows what's the right thing to do, he does not quit, he does not stop.
Right.
And I love seeing, and I could buy that here. Like,
yes.
what I know, you know, we said before in the non-spoiler that you don't have to have seen, or, you know, you don't have to know anything about the Black Panther to appreciate this movie.
No.
It can stand on its own. But if you do know the character, if you have some understanding of sort of the rich heritage of that character, it's easy to see it here, that they got it right, that they really nailed it with this. All the performances, Martin Freeman didn't have a whole lot to do, but he's always solid.
Yeah, he was great. It was just, you know, it was a
Michael
small
B.
part.
Jordan was fine as Killmonger. I thought that character was written really well.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about the things that we love about the movie, that we enjoyed about the movie, and why we recommended it so in our non-spoiler review. Were there any things that you didn't like? Any cons in this review?
I can't think of any right now, but I mean, I know that you had a couple in mind, so we'll see.
Yeah,
Once you say them,
I didn't say anything to you about specifics, but there were a couple of things that stood out to me, and I don't think that they're a Black Panther problem. I think that they are a Marvel Cinematic Universe problem, something that they tend to do, and I just happen to not agree with. Now, I'm not going to ever complain about anything that Kevin Feige does in his role running this show, because we love the MCU.
Yeah.
But I would say that, you know, in the course of this movie, again, this is a spoiler conversation, in the course of this movie, we lose two villains. And at least in the at least where Claw is concerned, he is a villain that is a pretty well established. I mean, he's not an A villain, but he's a pretty well established Marvel villain. And the fact that we only got him for a fraction of a second in Age of Ultron, and then we get him here, and he goes out kind of like a punk.
Yeah.
One, I found it hard to believe that someone who was the only person who had ever gotten into Wakanda and stolen and survived to tell about it, that he could be fooled by Killmonger and not see that coming.
Yeah.
You know, you're telling me on the one hand that he's one of the craftiest guys out there, and they said they've been looking for him for 30 years.
Yeah.
So how does that guy fall prey to Killmonger's sort of reversal? That I found a little bit troublesome. It didn't take me out of the movie, but I was just like, well, now we don't get to have Claw again, and I would have liked to have seen him as a more main villain at a later point.
Yeah.
We're not going to get that. And then Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan's performance I felt like was solid. I'm not a huge Michael B. Jordan fan anyway, but I thought he handled the part well. It was written well.
Yes.
And because it was written well, and because he handled it well, he was an engaging villain.
Yes, very much so.
And, you know, that's often a complaint. I don't usually have it, but it's a complaint against the MCU that they don't have solid villains.
Yeah.
You know, Loki, I feel like, was a solid villain. We've had a few. You know, we've had a few for sure. But I felt like Killmonger was such a good villain and stood out against kind of some of the other villains that we've seen, and we're not going to see him again. And so I get it. I get it that when someone, you know, story-wise, if someone has done this to you and to your nation or whatever, there's got to be an ending and, you know, and whatever. And I think it was very much in his character not to want to be, you know, imprisoned. So I get all of that from a story point. So please don't think I'm saying it was out of left field. I just feel like it's a mistake when you have crafted a villain that stands out because they're so solid and you understand where they're coming from. that, you know, and I mean, he was persuasive enough to get people on his side. So it wasn't just that he could stand up to Black Panther. That was something in and of itself. It was that he, you know, he came in with force and you know, and sort of brute power and took over, but then he swayed people to his side to help him do that. So I feel like it was kind of a shame to toss that away.
A little bit, yeah. I mean,
and not be able to have him come back and play into something
I think those characters needed that moment. Now, I would have to say I was honestly just slightly faked out. I'm like, how cool would it be to have two Black Panthers, you know, have him be turned to his brother's side, and they would be... Cousin.
Yeah.
See, I even thought about them as brothers. But anyway, turn to his cousin's side, and then they could both fight for, you know, all the good things. And but you know, that I didn't get that, but I could see where that would have been a great, you know, sort of fix for that. But I think they both needed that moment. Like the Killmonger just realized that he just wasn't going to get the vision that he was hoping for, and if he couldn't get it, there was just no point. And I think T'Challa just needed to learn about his cousin and just kind of take that lesson in and apply it to, you know, what does he want for Wakanda going forward. So I think they both needed that moment as much as I could see them trying to figure out a different way to write out of it, but it was exactly what they needed.
Yeah, and so I don't think it was a problem with Black Panther, like I said, per se. I think it's a Marvel problem that even when they give us a good villain, they tend to throw them away. Loki has been lucky in that regard that they haven't tossed him, but he's a god, so, you know, that's a little bit more difficult. But
they've beaten him up severely several times.
Yes, they've done that a few times. But, yeah, so I guess... You know, when it's all said and done, we've already given this our highest recommendation, which is a double pop from us.
Pop, pop.
Nothing fizzly about Black Panther.
No.
It is an awesome experience. We hope that you enjoyed your experience there as much as we did. Let us know, since you watched the spoiler review, we assume that you have seen the film. So comment below and let us know, what did you think of the movie? Were there some points that you loved or didn't love that we missed and didn't talk about? If so, let us know and we can talk about those things in the comments. If you like this video, what should they do?
Hit that thumbs up.
That's right, and hit the subscribe button so that you can see whatever we're doing next. We got a lot of stuff coming down the pike that we're excited about. We thank you for spending your time with us, listening to this spoilery review of Black Panther, and we hope that you'll check out what we've got coming next. If you do subscribe, be sure and hit that little bell icon so that you can be notified the next time we drop something. We got fun stuff coming with the kids. We've got some more reviews. We've got some trailer reactions. We've got who knows what, because we're constantly just...
churning it out.
Yep. Like a sausage factory.
Yes.
Or a meat grinder. I'm tired.
Same.
Okay, so it's after 3 a.m. here. We're going to close this thing up. Thank you for sticking with this. And again, let us know what you thought about the movie in the comments below. Until next time, folks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.